Diploma in Folklore and Culture Studies and PG Diploma in Migration and Diaspora Studies. The school also offers PG Certificate in Climate Change and Avshist Prabandhan mein Praman Patra. The school also offers 2 doctoral programs, PhD in Environmental Science and PhD in Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies. The school offers various innovative technologies and multimedia for providing a very excellent student support system. The study material is of high quality. The learner support is provided through Gyan Darshan, Gyan Vani, IRC, Swayam Prabha and Swayam channel of IGNOU. For more detail, please log in to IGNOU website. For online admission in these programs, visit school site and also the Samarth online education portal of IGNOU. So please join these programs and fulfill your educational aspirations.
Hello learners and listeners, welcome to this session. Today's topic is Evolution of Gender Budgeting Global Scenario. In this session, we discuss about how the gender budgeting as a tool for mainstreaming gender issues has evolved over a period of time at the international level. Specifically, today we will discuss about the initiatives taken in Australia and South Africa. Of course, at the end we will discuss the Indian initiatives too. If you look at how the gender budgeting as an initiative evolved over a period of time, past 3 decades, governments, international organizations and civil society groups, they have used wide range of approaches and to break down the government budget and scrutinize how far these initiatives really helped to analyze the impact of budgetary allocations on girls, boys, men and women and other genders. This initiative is called gender responsive budget. Usually there are various names. It was called gender budgeting, gender responsive budgeting. They call it as it is a strategic approach to assess the government budget, whether the government budgets all over the world, irrespective of which country they are initiating, what kind of impact it creates on various sections of the society, specifically whether it brings gender equality or not. So gender responsive budget initiatives make up one of the many tools available to advocates and anybody who wish to promote gender equality and women's rights by influencing the budgets. So if anybody wants to influence the budget to bring gender equality, gender budgeting initiative is the best tool to do the same. Basically, all of us, you must have enrolled in master's program in gender and development studies. Already you know the difference between sex and gender. So I don't want to get into all those basic concepts. Directly, we will discuss about the gender budgeting, rationale for implementing gender budgeting at the various levels, and what is unique and specific about the initiatives in the countries like in Australia, South Africa, and of course in India. The rationale for implementing gender budgeting is that the existing persistent inequality between men and women, and this gender budgeting is a tool to facilitate development by integrating gender into macroeconomic policy. That is the first thing. If you look at this, the rational objective of this session is to discuss the origin of gender budgeting process in different countries all over the world. As I have mentioned, specifically today we will discuss about the South Africa and Australian initiatives. Third objective is to examine the gender budgeting initiatives in India. Before we get into the gender budgeting initiatives in various countries, I would like to give definition for gender budgeting. Gender budgeting initiatives analyze how government raise and spend public money with the aim of securing gender equality in decision making about public resource allocations and gender equality in the distribution of the impact of government budgets, both in their benefits and in their burdens. The impact of government budgets on most disadvantaged groups, especially women, is a focus of special attention. As I have already mentioned, we call it gender budgeting, gender responsive budgeting, and gender sensitive budgeting. When we implement the gender budgeting initiatives at any level, whether it's in local level, that is the local government level, whether it's in municipality or panchayats, or state level and central level, we need to talk about the revenue and expenditure on women. Basically, gender responsive budget are the budget which planned, approved and implemented and monitored and audited in a gender sensitive manner. How much amount has allocated in the entire budgeting process, and which are the schemes and the government has formulated, and how much the government has allocated for each scheme. And once they allocated specific amount, then we need to analyze what kind of impact the particular program, schemes or policies will make on men, women, girls, boys and other genders, and of course marginalized communities. Even gender budget initiatives will analyze what kind of impact it create. Women live in the rural areas, the women they live in the urban areas, as well as gender budgeting initiatives. Certainly, if any government, if they allocate very low amount of budgetary provisions for the schemes or programs or policies related to women and marginalized groups, once we analyze the existing budget, then certainly it will empower the women and marginalized communities to bargain with the government, and that once they started bargaining with the government, certainly it will create an awareness among various sections in the society. So government automatically tend to allocate more resources for the disadvantaged group to improve their lives and livelihoods. That is the first thing we need to understand. Secondly, how the gender budgeting initiatives originated at the international level. In the 4th International Conference for Women in the Beijing in the year 1995, it has discussed different strategies to implement gender and development approach. One of the biggest strategy is to implement the gender budgeting. So the signatory countries, whoever accepted the 4th International Conference and agreed to put their signature, they agreed to mainstream the gender into their policies and programs. How do they mainstream? One of the strategies for gender and development approach is the gender budgeting. As I have already mentioned, that gender budgeting is called in a different name. Basically, the theoretical root of gender budgeting is feminist economy of interdependency between private and public budget. Like various international organizations like UN agencies, Commonwealth Secretariat, and other international and transnational, multinational organizations and various governments, they took an initiative. Specifically, 2 governments, they from the beginning itself, they have interested to implement the gender budgeting initiatives. First one is that Australia, before the initiative of gender budgeting discussed in the United Nations 4th World Conference on Women, in the 1984 itself, Australia has introduced the first gender budgeting initiative. In that initiative, Australian government as well as feminists in the Australia, they have specifically talked about the budget as an essential instrument for promoting gender equality, and they are the pioneering in analyzing the impact of public budget on gender relations. Their focus is on assessing tax and transfers, how much taxes the government is collect from the individual as well as through various activities. Now then, whatever the taxes the government collects, how much the tax amount transferred to various departments, specifically on departments related to social policy and women's department and various departments which deals with the women, other marginalized sections of the group. Second specific initiative the Australian government has taken is that they want to engendering the entire economic policies. These are the very important initiative. First one is that they have analyzed the existing tax collection. Second one is that the feminists in Australia as well as the government, the women working in the Australian government, specifically the Ministry of Finance, they want to engender the existing macroeconomic policies. In 1993, the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom established gender budgeting initiatives in Canada. So before there was a discussion about gender budgeting initiatives in the international conference. These are the two significant examples where they have discussed about the gender budgeting initiatives, and they thought that it is a very significant initiative to bring gender equity and equality. That is important. In Canada, based on the alternative concept of security, they have the initiative focused on welfare and defense expenditure. That is the important. Basically, if you look at the gender budgeting initiatives, in Australian experience, clearly talks about the significance of analyze, advise and coordinate and implement policies that integrate the needs and interest of the employed, self-employed entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs into sector and interministerial policies, programs and budget. So we need to analyze and advise and coordinate with the various departments, as well as we need to do the research on what kind of impact it creates on women and other marginalized sections in the society. Another significant important initiatives taken as far as gender budgeting is concerned is that United Kingdom. In 1989, United Kingdom Women's Budget Group, they call it as UKWBG, emerged. It is a think tank. This UK think tank composed of gender advocates from various sectors. Specifically, most of them have come from the Labour Party. They are sensitive towards social sectors. Like in the beginning, these advocacy groups, they started commenting on the government budgets. Till now, the Women's Budget Group in UK has focused on the analyzing national revenue raising mechanism, as well as how much the government at the national level, they are raising the revenues. Not only that, whatever the revenue government collect, how far they are spending those revenue, how much they are spending on social sector, specifically on social security measures. Those are the points they have specifically analyzed every year. The report was regularly submitted to the government. They act as a pressure group to pressurize the government to implement various measures to address the needs of the women and other marginalized group. When you talk about I have explained about the Australian experience as well as UK experience. When you talk about the gender budgeting initiatives, as far as Australia is concerned, it is purely on government initiatives. So in Australia, both national government and provincial government, both they took an initiative, then they implemented gender budgeting initiatives at the various level. As far as UK, United Kingdom is concerned, there are the group which they themselves called as Women's Budget Group. They act as a think tank and regularly they analyze the government budget and they pressurized government to address the social security measures. Unlike in Australia and UK, if you look at the initiatives at the South Africa initiative is totally different from other countries' initiatives, and it is also very unique initiative. If like for example in South Africa, both non-governmental organizations and parliamentarians, they come together and they initiated the South African Women's Budget Initiative in 1996. The South African Women Budget Initiative is a most institutionalized gender budgeting initiative, and it is the one of the successful initiative, and it could able to draw civil society organizations, parliament, government and other international agencies. The South African initiatives, they have focused on national, subnational budget, as well as most of the civil society groups, they actively participate in the government initiatives, and they could able to facilitate the government to implement gender budgeting initiatives. Here I would like to give you an example as far as South Africa is concerned. Like many other developing countries, once South Africa got an independence, most of the civil society groups, they would like to address the needs of the women and other marginalized communities. In that initiative, they thought that land reform is the significant initiative they need to take up. Before the South Africa got an independence, most of the land is under the control of the colonized people. Like whites, they have controlled the most of the lands. Among indigenous population, male members, they owned quite considerable percentage of the land. As far as women is concerned, either they are landless, poor, or they owned very less percentage of the land. In this initiative, because of the landlessness, the women, they were not able to do certain kinds of economic activities, and also when they want to take up certain entrepreneurial activities, it is difficult for the women to generate the resources to do the entrepreneurial activities. In this situation, this gender budgeting initiatives in South Africa facilitated the government to reform the existing land resources, and the women could also able to get the considerable percentage of the land as a significant asset to do the economic activities. In this entire initiatives at the international level, we need to mention the initiatives taken by the Commonwealth Secretariat, and this Commonwealth Secretariat has implemented the pilot project in many of the Commonwealth countries like Barbados, South Africa, as I have mentioned, Sri Lanka, St. Kitts, Nevis, many countries. It has facilitated the government to implement the gender budgeting initiatives. Like the Commonwealth Secretariat, they could able to provide the technical support to the many countries, especially developing countries, to implement the gender budgeting initiatives. That is the another significant point. Here we need to note it down. So I have mentioned about few examples as far as international initiatives is concerned. Here we need to talk about the Indian initiatives also. In India, 8th plan, that is 1992 to 97, highlighted the gender budgeting initiatives for the first time and the need to ensure the definite flow of funds from general development sector to women. That is the first thing we have to understand. The second one is that The 9th plan adopted the Women Component Plan. As you know that in the Women Component Plan, we need to ensure that not less than 30% of funds or benefits are earmarked to all development sectors related to women and directed to central and state government to do the same. That is the thing. Third one is that special vigil was established to monitor the flow fund to ensure the holistic approach to empower women. The 10th plan reinforced the commitment towards gender budgeting initiatives and came with a mission statement as budgeting for gender equity. The 10th plan has developed the framework of activities such as quantification of allocation of resources for women in central, state and local budget and expenditure. That is the first thing. Gender auditing of monetary, fiscal and trade policies of the central and state governments. Impact assessment of various schemes in union and state budgets, as well as analyzing the programs, strategies, as well as policy initiatives from the perspective of their impact on the status of women as reflected in the important macro indicators such as literacy, maternal mortality rate, like female participation of women in workforce. They have taken certain indicators. They collect the data. The government of India has collected the data related to these indicators like female literacy, MMR, child mortality rate, female workforce participation. All this data was collected. The collected data have been analyzed, and once they have analyzed, they have placed how far they compared the female with male members in the society. Accordingly, the government started allocating more funds to the certain sectors to improve the status and condition of women. As far as India is concerned, the first formal exercise in gender budgeting at the national level was undertaken by the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. They have analyzed the union budget and categorized the public expenditure under three main types in their report on National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. First one is that based on these three main types only, till the date, most of the institutions and organizations, they analyzed the existing government fund and accordingly they provide certain suggestions to the government to allocate more fund to the women specific programs. Which are the three main types in their reports are specific allocation targeted on women and girls. Certain program and policies, it specifically target women and girls to improve their status and position. That is the first thing. Then pro-women allocation, which are the composite of expenditure of schemes with women component. Like as I have said that initially in the women component plan, 30% of the fund is allocated to the certain pro-women schemes and programs. Third one is that mainstream public expenditure that have gender differential impacts. For example, like if you take a labor ministry, so if the government, if the particular ministry, if they want to make certain policies to improve the labor status, if they don't collect gender segregated data, certainly it is called the gender blind approach. Because most of the, like as far as Indian economy is concerned, we have a formal and informal employment, and majority of the Indian economy, macro economy, is run by the informal economic activities. In that informal economic activity, more than 60% of the women were part of the informal economic activities. Unless the specific Ministry of Labor, if they don't mainstream their expenditure, that have that have a gender differential impact, then certainly their policies would be gender blind. Like that, National Institute of Public Finance and Policy, they have categorized national budget in 3 categories. That is the specific allocation targeted on women and girls, pro-women allocation, which are the composite expenditure of schemes with women component, then mainstream public expenditure that have gender differential impacts. So if you look at that, there is an initiative based on the Beijing Platform for Action in the year 1995. Gender budgeting act as a significant tool to mainstream gender issues. In that entire process, like a Commonwealth Secretariat, UN organization, IDRC, and many national and international organizations, they have actively participated and they facilitated national governments to implement gender budgeting initiatives. In that entire initiatives, one more international initiative I would like to mention here. Here in the gender budgeting initiative has taken by the International Labour Organization, they were talking about the decent work agenda. In that decent work agenda, it seeks to promote social justice by advocating right-based approach to development. So ILO, International Labour Organization, is to promote equal opportunities for both men and women to engage decent work in conditions, I quote, in conditions of freedom, equity, security and human dignity. So decent work means meeting or exceeding core social standards, setting a threshold for work and employment which embodies universal rights, I unquote. So, gender budgeting initiatives are taken at the international level. India is also the signatory in the gender budgeting initiatives. Since India is signatory for the gender budgeting initiatives, Government of India has regularly taken initiatives to implement the gender budgeting initiative at the national level. Some of the state governments like Government of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka is the pioneer government in implementing the gender budgeting initiatives. In the state of Karnataka, even it has facilitated the local governments like at the municipal level and panchayat level. They have taken an initiative to implement the gender budgeting initiatives. Apart from Karnataka, certain states like Tamil Nadu and Kerala, they are pioneering in implementing the gender budgeting initiatives. So far, I could able to explain the effort taken at the international and national level to implement the gender budgeting initiatives. Thank you so much for listening this session.
A warm welcome to IGNOU. If you're creative, if you can write well, and if you can visualize, mass communication is the correct career option for you. I am going to talk about postgraduate diploma in journalism and mass communication, which is also the first year of MA program in journalism and mass communication. So any learner who has done a postgraduate diploma in journalism and mass communication is eligible to take admission straight away into the second year of our master's program in journalism and mass communication. Duration to complete this program is minimum 1 year, and because we have this inherent flexibility in distance education system, you can take up to 3 years to complete this program. The minimum eligibility criteria for taking admission in this program is bachelor's in any discipline. To give you a glimpse of what are the various components of this program, we begin with telling you what mass communication is, what are the various areas, various branches of mass communication. Then we go on to tell you